Hey everyone, today's video we are going to go over how to install the brakes on the 22 Designs Outlaw and Outlaw X bindings. It's pretty simple. These bindings come in 4 sizes now. They come in an 80 millimeter, 95 millimeter, 110 and 125 millimeter sizes. So one thing to note is these are non-retractable brakes, meaning they don't come up and then go in. So you want to decide on the brakes according to the ski size. Some people definitely do not like these brakes when there's a little bit too much width on the outside. They tend to hang up when you're touring, and people don't like that, so they run a leash instead. For the install, you're only going to need a simple flathead screwdriver and the brakes that you're going to install. So I chose these skis because this is a really good example of a ski that actually is kind of right at the edge of width for this particular brake. And one thing you'll notice is this is actually pretty tight once you put it on there. And in fact, it might actually do a little bit of shaving of this plastic as you put them on over time. That's not a bad thing, and that could actually be nice to have a little bit tighter against the ski. You don't want them too tight, and you definitely do not want to bend the brakes to try to put them on, as these springs will actually pull apart and the brake will be non-functional at that point. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to have to remove the slick pin. You can refer, if you've never done that before, you can refer to our video about how to take the slick pin out of the 22 Designs binding. It's pretty simple. We're going to engage this little spring triangle here and push the slick pin into the hole like that. We'll turn it over, and that'll expose this side, and then we can pull it through. Sometimes this can be a little tricky. Sometimes this will get caught up on the slick pin, and you just have to kind of wiggle it free or reach in there and engage the spring again. That came out pretty easy this time. You'll see that it's caught here. You just want to kind of push that spring and pull it through until the slick pin comes all the way out. Once you've done that, you've got the flex plate ready to go, and the first thing we need to do is remove this plastic piece. You'll notice 2 tabs underneath the flex plate. You're going to press those together with your thumbs and then pull it out the other side like this. Some people like to hold on to these in case they end up going back to a leash and don't want to get that snowpack in there, so that's something handy to set aside in your collection. At that point, we're going to set this down. We're going to use our screwdriver to engage the tour mode. And actually, before that, you may want to take your leash off since you're not going to need that. We're going to engage the tour mode by pushing it back. And then we can lift up, and now we can access this part of the binding underneath where the toe plate is. At this point, go ahead and grab your brakes, and you're going to set them right in this hole right here. You can drop them to the bottom too. Now that you've got it into the main channel here in the binding, we want to kind of lift them forward a little bit and bring this part down. And I actually like to lift up and put them in the upper channel here. I can then close the binding, and at that point I can lock the tour mode back forward. Make sure everything's latched together, and then I can pull the brakes down like that so that they're down towards the bottom of the ski. The next step is that we're going to put the flex plate back onto the binding. We're going to take the hole that we made by removing that plastic piece, and we're going to set it over this part. The next thing that's, and probably one of the most important things, is we need to line up these tabs with this tube and this slick pin hole. The way you do that is by putting this on top, putting these little flanges down to the side, And you'll notice sometimes it looks kind of off like that, and what you can do to get that to work is by moving the brakes and pushing that, you can help line up all of the holes properly so that you can put the slick pin through. Quite frankly, this can be one of the most difficult parts of the whole process, is making sure that these holes all line up. And it just takes some practice of kind of pushing and pulling the different aspects that you're working with to get everything to line up properly. So once you're confident you know how to line all the pieces up, you want to grab your slick pin again, start lining things up like we just talked about, and you're going to insert the slick pin through one side. You're going to turn it over, and you'll notice this is where we need to start lining things up. So we want to push this down, try to move the brake so we can kind of see that hole properly, and then use your index finger on the other side and give a nice push through. You'll get a little click because of that little spring, and it's locked in. And now you've got installed brakes and you're set to go. So that's how you install the brakes on the 22 Designs Outlaw. These brakes are also compatible with the 22 Designs Outlaw X, and it's the same process. Thanks for checking out the video.